All right, I had to put up the logo for a second to remind myself where I was. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here. It's today. Today is Thursday. You're on the episode about captioning. So as always, welcome to the show. This is the JB&A Today live show where we talk about cool tech, bring on great guests, and show off amazing things. Today, I'm wearing headphones and you'll find out why later. I don't usually do this, but we're running some really cool stuff today. We're going to be talking about captioning and what captioning is and where it's being used. And to be perfectly frank, like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, captioning was all about broadcasters. They were the only people really needing it. But obviously the world has changed. We're broadcasting in a multitude of ways, from our offices to our homes to our house of worship. I mean, broadcast is everywhere, and captioning is now following all those places. So whether you're in education or you're in house of worship, you have a need for captioning. If you're a city council, you have a need for captioning, right? So regardless of who you are anymore, captioning is now ubiquitous. And we're hearing crazy things like people wanting to caption their Teams calls and, you know, in all these environments. So today I brought in some really good friends of mine, Matt and Bill from ENCO. They are, wave gentlemen. They're on the call here. They're going to show us a product from ENCO called enCaption, which is all about captioning on the fly. But what I love about this product is it's not in the cloud. It's in your office. In fact, it's in my office and it's in their office today. So we're going to do some crazy captioning workflows, talk about how it's used. We're going to, of course, do the ubiquitous PowerPoint because that's necessary for a webinar. It is actually a rule. It was passed by the House of Representatives last year. You have to do a PowerPoint in every webinar. As always, ask questions. Ask them in the question and answer panel. We will get to them either during, before, or definitely by the end, and we'll try and show you what we mean. If you like what you see, and we know you will, here's how to get a hold of us. Make sure you grab that. Ooh, wow, that's backwards on your screen, isn't it? We'll fix that later. It's backwards on my screen. Call, click, or email to get a hold of your JB&A sales rep, and they will get you a demo schedule to make sure you get to see this. So this is going to be really, really great. Okay, so I want to introduce Matt Walther and Bill Bennett, the two gentlemen from ENCO with us today. Now, they're each going to do something a little bit different as part of the presentation. Bill's going to kick us off and do the layout of what this tech is, and then Matt's going to drive it home with what everybody wants to know. Can I use captions in Zoom? Yes. Okay, Bill, I'm going to kick it over to you. Get us started and let's have some fun.
Awesome, cool. Hey, Nick, thank you. It's a privilege. And hi, everybody. Yeah, you can always tell us ENCO folks, we got those blue shirts going on here. So
I didn't get the memo today.
Yeah, well, you know, you've got that cool Mac kind of thing going on there. So
it's good times.
I like it. Yeah, hopefully we're not putting anybody to sleep with too many slides. I've only got about 97 of them today, so kind of trimmed it down. But no, so we're going to talk about enCaption, which is our automated captioning system. And it does a whole lot more than just captioning. It does speech to text in a way that you can use the content, the data, the captions in a lot of different ways, and we'll show you what some of those are. The enCaption product is really what we call an appliance. It's a Windows 10 embedded system that runs on a platform that's typically a 19-inch rack mount unit, one rack unit high. And it requires no internet connectivity either, so it's a completely on-premises solution. So you can hook it up to the internet when you want software updates, and maybe, you know, we could walk you through some usage tips and stuff, but otherwise it doesn't need any internet at all. First, a little bit about us. ENCO, we've been around since the 1980s. We started in, and we do a lot of currently still, radio, auto, and television automation and playout software. We've sold to tens of thousands of customers worldwide. It's huge what we've built up with a lot of neat stations that are using us, and we're really grateful for that they trust us. Back in the 80s, we invented the first touchscreen playout system that replaced old cart machines back then, if you remember those. So innovation is kind of key to our DNA. We are US based. Actually, we're mostly located here in Michigan. And no, it does not snow every month of the year. It did not snow this month, I don't think. We've been around, though, making more than just our playout systems. We started with the enCaption product way back in 2005. And so we've been building that out, getting it a lot smarter, a lot faster, a lot more accurate. And now we've got something really cool to show you regarding that accuracy and speed. So our customers that are using the enCaption product, they vary all over the place, from small markets and to individual stations to huge groups, so station groups, and also a lot of PEG stations, municipalities. And of course, those can vary from a big city to a small little town or a borough or something. And we have more and more educational customers too, universities and K through 12 using enCaption for different reasons. And again, we'll show you those. And some corporate AV customers as well, using the caption system for captioning for live events inside venues, and for you might have heard of what is called CART, Communications Access Real-Time Transcription. That's like captions on a video monitor inside of an auditorium or something. So we can also do that with this. Like I said, it's an on-premises text appliance. We do have cloud versions that we use for certain customers that require that in their workflow, but most of the time customers don't want that in the cloud. They want it to be on-prem, and that's where we really shine because it's pretty rare to find that. The accuracy we find is in the mid to high 90s now. We are doing captioning in Canada, which requires a 98% accuracy rating. And I think we're like 98.2 on average or something. So it's really pretty darn good there too. Latency is comparable to humans, 3 to 4 seconds. And the system can do both live and offline captioning. So you may have file-based captioning needs, not just live. Or the other way around. And because it's automated, it can run 24/7. You don't have to worry about reserving a person to sit down and run it. And if they don't show up to work, you might be in trouble, right? Well, it's always there. So the more you use it, the more economical it gets, actually. The caption standards that you're probably familiar with for broadcast, CEA 608, 708, we can do that internally with our product, or we can drive an external encoder like an Evertz if you have one. We can take video feeds in for SDI, HDMI, NDI, and we can send all those back out again. One thing about the NDI spec right now that only is open captions, because we know NDI or NewTek is working on adding closed captions into the NDI spec. So at this point, it's not supported. But once that is, I'm sure we'll be rolling that out as well. And all the time it's captioning, it's creating transcripts and sidecar files, which are text documents that you have as a permanent text copy of what was which was transcribed. But also, if you do any offline video editing, you want those sidecar files that you can marry back up with the video and add captions to videos that may not have them yet. We also have a neat HTML web engine component that allows captions to be brought to web pages and smartphones and stuff like that. Because it's a Windows-based architecture, we've designed it intentionally that way to be really flexible with audio standards. We can de-embed audio from SDI or from HDMI. Again, that NDI, we can take AOIP like Livewire, WheatNet. If you've got ST2110, AES67, we can pull that in. Dante, any of those, we just need a virtual sound card, and it's a little piece of middleware software. AES3 analog, if you've got that. It's pretty flexible there. We can even caption off of live audio and video streams that are over the internet. So if you've got some content out there that you're creating or your customers working with that you can only get to it with, maybe it's because it's a stream for some reason only, kind of an interesting workflow maybe, but we can caption from that. So, and the file base is kind of cool because it can do lots of files one by one. We have this watch folder where you can throw all your audio and video clips into it and just let it go. And then when it's done, you have all these sidecar files named in the same way that the original files were named, so they're easy to find. It is AI based, definitely. The speech engine that we have, we keep evolving it and improving it and teaching it to get better. So like many things, deep learning neural networks really do improve the quality. And we also have ways that you can add custom word lists, principally 3 different ways to do it. If you have a teleprompter system, and if you're doing some news from maybe a PEG station, we can take that script in there, and we don't actually caption via the script in real time. We just look for the words that our system doesn't already know. And typically that's very few. It's maybe 5 words in a whole newscast. It depends, of course, but names of people, names of cities, uniquely spelled words. Those are systems that aren't in its dictionary of about 1 million words. So that's a neat way to automate bringing those in. Same with meeting agendas. If you have a text file of an agenda for a meeting coming up or a roster of sports athletes' names, you can feed that into the system. It'll hold it into memory while it's, the words that it doesn't already know to help improve it. Let's see, and voice training is, by the way, a thing of the past with this, the AI technology. Really, it doesn't need it, doesn't use it. There's no way we can train it. It doesn't need to be trained. So it's gotten really smart that way. It's typically in the States, we sell it in English. We can also build these out in Spanish and about I'm not sure the exact number, 15 or 20 different languages. So it's quite diverse as far as that's concerned. Punctuation detection is also a part of our system now. We can detect inflection and therefore denote commas, which are pauses, exclamation points, question marks, periods, kind of the end of a sentence. We also can tell when someone else is talking, a speaker change detection, that's called. And that's generally typically in the caption industry indicated by a couple of chevrons to the left of the next line of text. So that's what we have there. We come up with software updates 3 or 4 times a year. So that's both in the quality of the speech engine and in our application software. So that's included when you're under our support program. And we have a neat feature, simple feature really, that it can just always record audio at the same time that it's doing captioning. So you can set it and automatically record audio onto a networked drive or onto its local drive. So you have audio recordings of the sessions as well. And we have also a neat little feature called that we can delay the video passing through our system to synchronize the captions, and that 4-second delay even goes away. That's useful if you are doing a live broadcast to a cable system. Not in-house, of course. You probably don't want to do that inside the same room because then, of course, the video would be delayed. This is a quick little diagram of, you probably don't want to stare at it too much, but this is just kind of the overflow of the system architecture. I have another version of this in a second I'll show you. And then we talk about sidecars. Before I show you the demo, some of you are probably familiar with what these things look like. They're really just text files. And so these are the different types of sidecar text files that we can save. The format's really popular: SRT, SEC, SMI, VTT, straight text, EBU,
Bill,
standard.
I want to grab you on this one right here, because I think this is a really important one to chat on right out of the gate, which is this isn't just for live video. Post-production as well. So some of my partners that are on right now that are in the MAM, DAM, PAM space that are working in video post-production, this appliance can be turned towards your storage and index all the content you have sitting there, and then apply those. You can tune your MAM and your PAM to apply all those SRT files back into as metadata, right? So this is a great way for those of you, especially in doing production for, say, I want to say reality TV when it comes back, is that the shooting ratio on these things and the time you're waiting for content to get transcribed by a human or through a service, you could have this thing ripping through files in a matter of minutes and giving your producers a leg up on the production. So it's just I think an important one to talk about. It's not just about live. Those SRT files can be turned over to post-production video as well. So very powerful.
Right on, cool, Nick. And you're right, and it is powerful. In fact, it's fast too. The offline file-based captioning to create these sidecars is 2 to 3 times real time. So if you have like a 60-minute video, typically 20 to 30 minutes is all it takes to create the sidecars. So you can really speed up your workflow that way. Yeah, cool. This is just a couple of examples. I'll show you these actually in real life, on the left side here. But this is an example in the lower right of us streaming captions to a smartphone. And it's just HTML, so the text looks kind of small there, but you can make it any size, any color combination you want. This is an example of CART using our system. This is at the NAB main stage in 2019. And this is us doing just automated captioning all week long of the main stage. We didn't feed it any words, any agendas, scripts, nothing like that. It's just running. And to have a quick little video of that, that's what I'm going to cut to next. And this is just the GUI interface, which we will also now take a look at. So I'll let this roll for about 10 seconds. And you're going to hear the audio from my speakers, which are located right here next to me. So hopefully that's loud enough. And in just like 10 or 15 seconds, just kind of watch it run here.
History is much the same, and the affinity for being software based is much the same. Or love for MDI was instant. Well, you were the first person I told about API. We were on the second floor of your booth. I always go by the physical booth because I steal their coffee. They have the best coffee in the show, so I'd always go by that booth. And we went upstairs and we had a coffee.
Sorry, I'm getting distracted about coffee there. So, and it might be a little hard to hear with the echo of that room with the recording here, but that's just it running 24/7. It's hard to find humans that can do that. The actual system diagram, this is a little, might be a little busy. So if you guys have, maybe do some screen grabs of this right now on your GoToWebinar viewer. But on the left is the different types of input signals and file types that we can take in live or offline. Again, the bottom is a summary of those sidecar files. The bottom center is what I'll show you in a second, the HTML streaming that we can do with this. If you we're going to keep going counterclockwise. The really cool thing we're going to show you is Zoom captioning, which we have just been rolling out, and it's really cool. So that's a neat part coming up. There's like a third-party example at 3 o'clock on a drawing of different types of inserters or encoders that some of your customers may have. We have an internal ability to do that with an optional piece of hardware we install in the appliance, and it's actually a lot cheaper than buying an external one. So if your customer doesn't have an external inserter, we can do that at a lower cost. And then I'm going to kind of keep rotating to top center, dead center there. That's the web API, and then and I'll show you that in just a minute. And then lastly, a little more, what is that, 11 o'clock, Nick? Our InTranslate product, which does real-time translation across any two of about 45 different languages, which is kind of spooky cool because you just feed it the audio coming from EnCaption, and it goes to our cloud system that we have doing that kind of translation, and it sends it back in this other language. So it's kind of neat. So, okay, here we go.
We're on architecture a little bit.
Yeah,
I just want to touch on one thing. So we had a question already come in from the audience, which was, in terms of cloud, because this is on-prem, other than software updates, is there any authentication, any cloud connectivity that it has to have?
Zero. You can leave. We have customers that leave them offline, for years. We typically have to reconnect, of course, to license it, depending on the lease, if they have a lease. But other than that, we don't see it. We don't know it's connected. They don't need to talk to us. We don't need to talk to it.
And we have a fair amount of GOV organizations that are using the EnCaption device within their facilities. All of those are blocked off from any kind of internet. We do work with those customers. There are times that we might be able to send a drive as a physical hard drive built up, ready to go, so they can remove the old hard drive, plug the new hard drive back in, and it is fully licensed, ready to go. Nice. And we'll never see that hard drive back because a lot of these places are in very secure environments, and so security, internet protocols, and things like that are really tightened down. And so for our government partners, some of our banking businesses, they have a lot of restrictions. And so, we're not able to get in and do any kind of updates because that would violate our protocol. But we work with all of our customers to be able to, if you do want to be able to have a drive, we'll reach out and tell you that there are some updates, tell you what's new, what's coming. And you can make the decision if you would like to get that. We'll get everything prepped here and ship it back to you. So that way it is a minimal downtime and minimal invasion on your part and on everyone's part.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, and that's a great point, because sometimes you have customers that they talk about some pretty secret stuff, classified or what have you, and don't want that to leave their building. And that's a real selling point, because things that can do ASR, it's almost all otherwise cloud-based. So that's not always preferred. Nick, any other architecture-related questions?
Not yet.
Okay, cool. I'm going to just kind of jump into the demo then, if that's cool for you guys. All right, so what we're looking at, this is the EnCaption application. It is, I don't have audio, I don't have SDI connected to this computer, so I'm going to be captioning off of a video file that's locally stored on this computer. And it's actually a copy of a town meeting. So it's just a nice exchange of some town representatives and their constituent talking about something. So I'm gonna let it roll. What you'll see in the upper left corner, you'll see the actual captions that are identical to what would be sent out to the external encoder or to our internal optional encoder. The left is just a rolling log file. And whenever it's running, it is generating a log file, which is great for diagnostics. Or just checking to see how how long it's taking to do things, where files are, stuff like that. Enough of my talking. You'll see the VU meters kick in the preview window as well. So let's let this roll for about another 10-15 seconds.
Chris to come back to us. It turns out the estimate is not correct for whatever reason, and he's really solid on it. Mm-hmm. If it's going to run over, then we want to hear about that. And if it's significantly over, of course, we may need to make a new decision depending on the cost. But at this point, that's why, Hans makes the good point. We're on the edge of, is there enough information? Is Chris giving us enough to move it to the board? either way, we're moving it to the board for them to deal with the policy issue, which seems to be the #1 issue.
So I think the board's got a lot of paperwork coming their way. But generally that could really just be an audio file coming in off of SDI or an analog or AES3 signal, something like that. When it is captioning, the other thing I was telling you about, this API, over here, this is just a simple web page. And on the left top, you'll see these are actually just HTML buttons, just literally hyperlinks. So we can build an interface, or you can build an interface, or your customer can, that reveals only the buttons that are necessary for them to use it. Typically, these would not all be necessary for a customer. This just is how we can demonstrate all of them. As you notice this thing here, the recognizer, that's what I'm turning on and off, which is the device that actually recognizes the speech and creates text from it. You can switch to offline or real time or what have you. And because it's all web-based through WebSockets, you can also connect this to an automation system, which is one of the 2 main ways that we can automate this, and that's connecting to a third-party automation system. The bottom portion here is simple HTML text streaming through and by the way, this whole thing is just a frame set. There's 4 frames in this thing: top, center, and middle, and bottom here where the captions are. So you can even just send these captions like this straight out to a, like that's what we were doing at NAB. We're captioning on a huge screen, right, a computer screen. The whole top half was just captions rolling. You can also send this therefore to your web server and get it out to the internet or to an intranet so people can follow along on their smartphones or what have you. So it's pretty darn flexible.
Let's explore that one just for a second there, because I think that the opportunity to take that now then and say, if you're a church, and put it on a monitor at the front of the auditorium and give your staff a break from signing throughout the whole service, or if you don't have a staff, right, where you don't have, but you want to offer that as a service to your audience, then here you go, right? It's easy to set up and get configured. Going back to city council and some of these other environments, and being able to have a monitor up in the room and support both the in-house audience as well as the audience watching on the web. And I think that's the one that often we miss. We're typically thinking about the stream that's going out and not necessarily always about the audience that lives inside or that's inside the room. And you're giving them the opportunity to serve both with this product.
Yeah, especially nowadays, and so much time, because there are so many more meetings about what's being opened, what's being closed, given the state of the world here for the past few months. And so being able to have something like this, we have clients, including even radio stations, that you wouldn't think would be doing anything with captioning, but these are talk radio stations. And what they're doing is they're putting up their streams, whether it is a video stream from town hall, city council type meetings, school board meetings, but also on their same web page, they're embracing this little HTML portion of it to where they can put that within their own web page. So that way, if you're watching from home and you maybe not be able to hear clearly, you can also watch the captions as well. For some of our school districts that are using this, this has been implemented for games and for some of the type of arena type settings. So that way they're taking just the audio from, say, the announcer or the sports announcer and being able to put this in. So, you know, if you're in the stadium and your high school has a little web page, they could take what Bill is showing here and just, you can embed that directly onto your own web page. So it makes it a kind of nice, easy integration. You know, you could have that as, you know, as a pop-out window or however you would like to be able to do. Web designers are so creative now that they can certainly find it and find a nice place to workspace. But, you know, hand signers are becoming hard to get a hold of, and you can't always get closed captioning on demand. If you can, it comes at a pretty steep price. So as an alternative to those types of things, here's something that's always available, always on demand, and allowing you as the end user to really make the choices of what's the best interaction for you and for your constituents or the people that are going to be watching.
Cool. And, you know, and just to take, you know, go ahead, you first.
Okay, well, you remind me of the other thing, but when you're doing an in meeting, a lot of folks are using video toasters. No, they're not. They're using TriCasters. Where did that come from? You can. It's easy to have a mix effect ME bus where you just layer or key this screen from a different feed coming in or computer feed. Right. You can resize it up, you know, change the contrast, color combination, whatever. You know, there's a lot you can do with this little window.
No, and I think the interesting one about that is the difference with you and the rest, right, is because the others are all in the cloud, right, or, you know, or at least, you know, the main competitors are in the cloud. We're talking about taking the video, sending it up into the cloud, getting the content transcribed, waiting for that data to come back. or it's being done by a human over a phone line, all that data time causes the big delay that we see on TV and everywhere else, right? Where, we're well into the commercial and we're just getting the words from that were spoken, 20, 30 seconds ago. And you guys are able, because it's here in the room with us, we're able to shrink that time down to a more realistic viewpoint of what was just said.
True. A complicated workflow, typical broadcast or an in-room live event or something, you take that audio over a modem or phone or to a captioner that's somewhere else in their home, probably just listening, then it has to go back. If you're doing live, it's going to be re-embedded into the signal and then up to the webcast encoder or over the air. With this, it's just a straight line. I mean, it's just a much simpler workflow, technical workflow.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and we've got a client that we worked with just recently. They do close to 600 meetings a year all around the country. And for them, it was more effective to have several of these in one room and just tunnel all the video in and do it all from one location. So that's one of the other pieces we can talk and explore in the coming minutes, is how this doesn't have to be necessarily in the room to make it work.
That's right. Yeah, if you got a router or switcher, because thank goodness for IP, right? It's really easy to get audio, especially if it's AOIP, throughout an infrastructure, and these captions back out over the same network. So, yeah, so I'm not going to go too much further. Well, so let me show you the. This sometimes gets a little more of the boring side, but this is just kind of one of the setup menus. And I shouldn't say this, Matt. Matt's not gonna want me to say this, but we have a whole new interface we're building out that we're going to let go at NAB, and we decided we have time. We're going to add even nicer stuff to it, so it's really looking cool. But so this is going to get even nicer looking. But this is where you check all the boxes that you really need or don't need for your sidecars, and whatever it does live or file based, those are the outputs or the text files it'll save as. Down here is where you can slide up and down the video delay. That's an optional feature that we can enable with this to slow the video looping through just enough to match it with the captions perfectly, to get that lip sync or almost perfectly. This is a setup screen for input-output sources, destinations. The input source is live or file-based, you set up on the left. And also if you're using NDI or something else, and then on the right is the, how you're sending the audio, or I'm sorry, the video out, if it's got open captions with it, if you're doing NDI with it. This is usually stuff you set once and forget. So we do actually have a whole config file, and we choose to keep it pretty simple. It's a text file. You don't have to go into Windows and start messing with the registry to adjust some of the other settings you may want that aren't in the GUI itself. There is one of these other neat features real quick that you can adjust for pronunciation. I like to give an example of someone named Chris Kane. Is that a he or a she? Is the first name K spelled with a K or a C? Is Kane spelled with a K or a C? You don't know. The system wouldn't know that. Probably a captioner or a human wouldn't know that unless they had a script. So if you start seeing these kind of errors come into this, you can correct it. There's an abbreviation for a defense information group called DINFOS. And this was during a live caption that we were doing at the video show. I'm sorry, the government. Well, so it's called the video show now, but it used to be called the government show or government video show in DC in December. And it heard DINFOS, and I thought, well, that might be the words deny those. Well, it's not. It's an acronym. It's DINFOS. You know, the DoD likes to use acronyms. It didn't actually know the word ENCO systems. That's not in the English dictionary. We're hoping to get it there one day, but for now, we have to tell it if it hears the word ENCODE systems, it actually means ENCO systems. And so when you make this correction live, you just reload the settings with this little button down here, and it will instantly update the lexicon. So if you're in the meeting and there's somebody's name is not getting spelled correctly, you can go in there and find that error right out of the text or the log file, either way, sidecar or log, and copy and paste it into this filters list and fix it on the fly. So,
so that's on the fly, but you have the ability to load that in advance as well.
10.4, this scheduling application is something that we have a lot of television broadcasters, news stations that are using this for like iNews, or we have a Moss listener, that a little piece of middleware that we use, that we can go out on a scheduled basis before there's 6 p.m. news, 6:30, 7 p.m., what have you, whatever they tell us. We go out, we grab that teleprompter script data, and then we again analyze that, keep the words that's not in English generally. All the rest we just throw out, no need to keep those. And so it just holds in the memory for that period of time, those new words that are unique to that show coming up. So it's powerful. And you can also do this with the meeting agenda just as easily, and a roster list. It just needs to look at a text file. So. I
think that's an important one, because as we talk about, let's say, city council, right, being able to load the agenda, you mentioned that earlier. So if you're talking about odd street names or things that might that not be ubiquitous to the English language, then you're able to correct that in advance, right? Or speakers that you know are coming up. More importantly, educations. We talk about education and the advancement of online education over the past couple months. I mean, you imagine a science class with words that I can't pronounce, let alone the computer. So I mean, that's going to be relatively important to be able to get accuracy for the viewer on the other side, right? And that's going to make this a much better application. So being able to say, hey, this encoder's got Science 101 scheduled at 10, boom, that the transcript of the day or the list of words that the teacher wants to ensure that are done correctly get loaded into the system in advance.
And those word lists, you have complete control over those. So if you would be wanting to have a word list for science terms, biological terms, you can certainly build a word list for that, where you might have a different word list for mathematical terms. So depending upon what you're doing, if this was a live presentation, you could have and schedule that word list for mathematical to load up at, say, 2 p.m., whereas at 3 p.m., it would automatically switch over to maybe a scientific terms. So that way the system can help you guide along with the kind of words that it needs. And these words can be built to where they can remain persistent in the system forever. So in terms for your council members, your mayors, your people who are going to be present for some time, street names, towns, as we talked about, some names might not be as important to be keeping around for a little period of time. We would have all thought that COVID would have been a word that we could have dismissed months ago, but no, it's still sticking around. So, you can add COVID into your dictionary and you can tell it, I want it that word to stay for a month, for a few hours, or forever. So you have those levels of control of how you'd like to be able to customize and work with your library so it best fits your needs.
I'd like it to be taken out of my dictionary now, please.
We all would.
Yeah, really, seriously. Corona what? That's just a beer, right? That's it. So
right over your shoulder.
Always ready.
Is that the salt or the, yeah. So so anyway, so yeah, I think I'm just looking at my notes to see if there's anything that I might have missed. I'm sorry if I digress sometimes. I kind of like
it's half the fun of the event.
Yeah, this is true. This is true. So what I am going to do, I think, really one more quick thing, but wait, there's more. And yes, cancel. The sidecar files that I did mention, and the offline online files. When you do offline file-based captioning, we have 3 folders here. You can name them anything we want, but generally this is a nomenclature we use: demo input, well, it's a demo computer, right? Input, archive, or results, and these can be networked over your campus network. They don't have to be physically the drive on this machine, the appliance. They could be anywhere else over your network, Windows network. So this is just, if you put it in the offline mode, it just keeps looking for files in this input folder. When it's done, it moves them into the archive folder, and it also saves the transcripts into this results folder. So when we are captioning live, those transcripts are all indexed by either midnight or time of day, depending on your setting preferences. And this is what they are, right? This is, okay, I don't have that associated. Here's a VTT format that some of your editing folks out there will recognize. And so this is just a line-by-line caption set of what we've been talking about. This is a little format we have on our own that we like, that it makes it really clean and easy to look at captions and time codes for them. And again, if there was a typo, a misspelling, Chris with a K instead of a C, you would just copy it from here and put it in that 3-word filter list, and then that little equal sign, and then the proper spelling. So it's that smooth. And so there's all these captions.
For those of my partners that are on the call right now that are CatDV fans or running CatDV, yes, the answer is yes. We tested it and it works, and quite beautifully, in fact. Yeah, get on the horn on that one. You want one of these for your CatDV.
Okay, cool. So now, rumor has it that Nick and Matt have been working on something in the background. They've been zooming in and out of this thing. I don't know what they're talking about, but
Bangering.
I'm going to ask if the desktop could be switched to my colleague Matt, the other blue shirt. And
while that's happening, Bill, you should know that you've got a fan out there who actually went to Dinfos for school back in the 90s. So shout out to David
right on
the call. So we used a reference.
Thanks. Hello.
Okay, so you should be seeing a screen of Nick and I and 2 people here on screen.
Well, I gotta
See?
unmute myself. Okay, there we are.
And
We're
so
now in both
this
ears.
is a Zoom meeting, just so it's broken up. I apologize that you can see some of my cluttered desktop here, but this is a Zoom meeting. And one of the things that we had a lot of requests for pretty early on in the beginning of this year is there some way that we might be able to integrate with Zoom? Obviously, once the pandemic hit, everybody started working remotely and people were using Zoom. Zoom became like the biggest buzzword all of a sudden, and rightfully so. And so one of the things that we started to look into with Zoom is how can we integrate with captions? Well, they had an API and an SDK that allowed us to integrate these. And so you're actually seeing on screen the captions, and I have the captions set up through the Zoom meeting interface. Once it's been set up, you can go in and you can hide the subtitles, turn them on. You can even see the full transcript. So everything that's been going on, Nicholas and I have had this little Zoom meeting running in the background. So we're doing a GoToWebinar and a Zoom meeting at the same time in both of these. So it's a little complex, but we certainly got it all certainly working. And so you could be able to see all of this basically at the same time as it was happening. And if Nick was to speak, the audio is being routed through the Zoom meeting directly into our enCaption. So even if this was a cloud device, there doesn't have to be any physical connection, no microphones or anything to be able to get the audio or the content into Zoom. It's got it, and it's showing up right there.
And just to prove it, I will talk for a second to say, hey, I'm on this one. This is not a pre-recorded episode that we transcribed in advance. This is truly happening on the fly. And surprisingly enough, people have asked us for this. They have been asking for a way to meet the audience expectation or to get a transcript of their meeting so they know that, you know, who agreed to do what. This is a great feature.
And so to dig in just to a little bit of the back end, I just did a VNC connection into one of the enCaption machine that's running the Zooms, another computer that we have here. This is a slightly updated version that Bill was kind of talking about. So we're being able to show that we're bringing the audio in, and as Bill was showing you earlier, you can see the captions on the top and the log. Some of the other things that I'll kind of show a little bit about this is that we are building a more robust web interface for enCaption. So where Bill was showing something that we kind of mocked up to show over the API controls, these API controls you can integrate with your newsroom system. If you have a system that is running for broadcasters for cameras, or you have some sort of an automation type system that can send out a message, a UDP, message, you can certainly write that message to where it'll turn on controls. So over here, just off to the right, you can see the this stop button for the recognizer. I can turn it on and off remotely, just like if I have the encoder down here in the bottom, which is red, I can turn on the encoder on and off all remotely. And so the idea behind this is more and more people are starting to move into cloud operations. How do you manage your system? How do you be able to take care of it? The design for this is to where you could upload files directly through here if you'd like to be able to do so. You can go through, you can take a look at your log, manage your settings, take a look at licensing of how much you've used and how much is available. And since we're doing integrations with Zoom, there's also options for Zoom in here directly. So this will, as a host, you can put in your host credentials and it'll go out and it'll see any meetings that you have. And the way that Zoom works is a little convoluted for this because they really intended it to be done by live captioners, but they did have an option for third-party integrators to do a direct control. So that's what we've taken advantage of. And so we've got a meeting. We've started up a meeting. This is the one that we're in here right now. And we're being able to then say, you know what, I have a closed caption URL that I got from Zoom and be able to plug that in directly and being able to see what the status is kind of overall. So this is something that is we're very much actively working on, and it is very much forthcoming. This is the actual program kind of in the background. Let me see if I can get over here to this and get, here we are. I have to find my mouse with going from screen to screen to screen. There we are. So here's the actual little application. There's nothing fancy to it. You normally wouldn't interact too much with it. So mostly it's just a matter of seeing all the meetings that you have listed, and then you can go through and select which meetings you would like to caption. And so that is something that is forthcoming. Now the audio, there's a Zoom session. You see that up in the little corner there with my picture. And so that is certainly kind of where we're at and what we're doing. We're looking at the ability to have streaming with Zoom. Zoom does do some streaming that you can set up a meeting for streaming. That's with their paid accounts. And with that option, since enCaption is able to take a web stream coming in, we might be able to bypass the entire SDK and just take the web streams coming in. So we're currently exploring that with Zoom. That allows for easier sense of scale if you're going to be needing several of these or having several meetings going on, potentially meetings concurrently. We're looking at how facilities can be able to manage that with enCaption, being able to really scale this up to have as many meetings or as be able to a workflow as necessary. So all of that is stuff that is forthcoming here soon. And as Bill was saying, some of the newer screens, we've updated some of the screens so they have a slightly different look, because we're always evolving, always moving through a lot of the controls and the features and the functionality. Some of these you might not see right now, but there's a lot of options and feature sets that have also been added over the past couple of months, past 2-3 months for us. So
a couple of things just to add on to this conversation right here. I mean, so one, Zoom is just the first, and they had a good API, but you all are actively looking at the other cloud platforms as well to figure out what's going to be the next one.
Sure. If those platforms have an opportunity for a third-party company like us to be able to send them the caption data, then absolutely we'll take a look at that. Absolutely.
But alternatively, utilizing just sort of modern tool sets, we can scrape an audio out of a call, feed it through the system, and put it back in as a user, just as a a screen in the feed. Yes. There's many ways that we can entertain bringing captions into these types of calls that don't require this API connectivity.
Absolutely. So like we were talking the other day, enCaption has the ability, if you're using NDI, for example, enCaption has the ability to render an NDI, and we would do that as an open caption. So in the top window, you would have the video that's coming in. Maybe we're getting NDI coming in, or maybe it's SDI, however the video feed is, if you want to do that as a video feed for one of these web conferences. You can certainly bring that in, and Caption can generate that through its NDI renderer and have the open captions burned in. And so in terms of a meeting, so if this was like a WebEx or something other than Zoom, you would see a screen, and it would be the enCaption screen with the web video, and you would just have all of the open captions going on. Alternatively, like what Bill was showing with that little web page, you could certainly also open that up as a web page. If you could generate the web page and have a camera or a video tap, then you could certainly also present that as just as a page or an HTML page being up on screen.
So, I mean, I guess what it comes down to is there's no holding back anymore. And, the ability to caption and to meet every audience expectation. And this isn't just about, the hard of hearing of the ASL community. Granted, I mean, this is supporting them in a great way, but my house, we have the captions on all the time because I got 3 loud kids in my place. So the captions are on our TV all the time just to make sure I didn't miss what was actually being said as we're watching programming. But it's a great feature set to have.
There's actually
to be able to offer this.
There's a growing requirement in more and more municipalities. Thinking like say Seattle, San Francisco, other towns and cities, Ann Arbor, Michigan. The requirements that TVs that have a certain resolution, if they're on in a public place, they have to have captions. If the content has the captions, they have to be on. So that's becoming much more commonplace, just by legislation. So.
So we had a question come in, and this is one that we've been getting fairly often, which is because you guys are built on Windows, how does a Mac environment, work alongside all these, these Windows boxes? You guys want to tackle that one for a second?
Yeah,
sure.
Either one of them. So our system does run on a Windows environment, so it can't run on a Mac, therefore. But ultimately, the audio that we're getting in, if your entire workflow is Mac, you still need to just get us audio in AES3 or analog or AOIP, audio over internet, over Ethernet. Then it doesn't really matter that we're a little Windows box over there. And if you're plugging into our WebSocket to get these captions back out, or you're controlling it through our web API, again, you can do that from any browser. That's not a platform or OS specific kind of thing. So yes, it's a Windows box, and I'm a Mac guy at home myself, but it doesn't, it's generally a set and forget kind of appliance. So.
Well, I think that's the word right there. It's an appliance. It's not software that that is running on a machine. It's an appliance dedicated to solving this problem, right? Or dedicated to giving a solution to this.
Yeah, and that also goes into the fact that if you've got any videos that once that you're done, you can post them into watch folders. We support recursive watch folders, so it's first in, first out in terms of the processing, and we can watch a variety of different folders all under a directory. So it's certainly easy to be able to dump a bunch of files in when you get ready to go home, come back in the next day, and everything's going to be captioned. All of the files of whatever the file type that you would like to have is going to be there ready for you, ready to go in the morning.
And again, that's cross-platform. Macs can look at Windows networking, similarly. So deposit it from your Mac into the network. The system looks at it, gives you back sidecars. They're ASCII text files. So again, you can open those back up in a Mac. So
spectacular. I like this one. This is fun. This is fun. Doing the good stuff here.
It is cool stuff.
So from a usage perspective, we don't get into pricing here. We talk about the technology, but notice that this is the way this is built out, or the way that people get access to this is on a per minute basis. Is that correct? I mean, kind of we value how much they're going to use it per day and then build accordingly to that. It is an appliance, and the appliance comes with the service when you get this. It is run on-prem. It's got lots of flexibilities we talked about, being SDI or HDMI or IP video in. One other I think we didn't really touch on is that it can grab an existing IP stream. Now, not talking about like an NDI stream, but a cloud stream, something that's already happening. And you can scrape that, bring it into the box, get the transcription, and then feed that back out.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I was talking a little bit earlier about that we have a radio station, they're a news talk radio station, and that's exactly what they're doing. They partnered up with their CDN because their CDN is doing their hosting for their website as well. So as they're pushing any kind of program content to their CDN, the CDN is routing that to the enCaption that also happens to be a box that is out there in the cloud, and it is being fed in literally as a web stream into enCaption. And enCaption is just generating the HTML part, and so the station is just tapping in to that socket. It's an IP address and a port essentially, and being able to receive those captions.
I can even show that if we need to. I have a URL here that I can go to and caption from a radio station.
Well, and then what I want to tag on top of that though is the concept of we actually had a client that was talking about having multiple systems. And as much as I want somebody to buy as many as they need, it's not necessarily required, because you really need to look at how often and when is it going to be used. So the ability to have one appliance, but in the case of that client we talked about earlier that does 600 meetings, they only ended up with 3. They ended up with 3 units, and they're balancing their workload across those 3 units from all around the country. So they're bringing in meetings from all around the country, adding captions, and then pushing them back out to the cloud. And so it's really given them some flexibility to determine, which box to use at the moment, versus needing to have, one dedicated to a meeting or a room. So in the case of education, where you've got classes happening all the time, this is about load balancing. How many classes need to be captioned, and how many units do we need to support that workflow, versus needing one dedicated per room.
Sure, and that's, and to kind of expand upon that just as a little bit more with the on-demand of the video files, we have an educational partner that makes software for K through 12, a very large player in that arena. And, as the educators are going through and figuring out what their classes are going to be, what videos they're going to be using, we work through the API integration with them. So through their software, they can just check a box that says, caption this video. It sends it to us, and the educator doesn't have to think about it. It doesn't have to do anything. Now, that was a partnership with one of these particular clients, and they wrote some of that option into their software. But that is not really that hard to do. From the back end, that can be from anybody in that entire school district, and it's just sending that information over to a single EnCaption unit.
Nice.
So you've got multiple schools. It's an SFTP location that, because they are not always, all in the same school building or in the same area or even in the same town. So being able to use their software and say, you know what, I want to flag this particular one, that stuff is then transferred through their software automatically, put on our system through a secure FTP, and we'll process it and then spit the results back out. They go out and they just take a look after a period of time, and they get those results and they bring them back in. So for the educator and for the end user, it really becomes invisible. They just see it as a checkbox and an option to be able to use these types of things. And so, they might not even know that they're using our products to be able to do that. So it's very nice in the workflow, and we're very, very open with working with other companies and integrate. That's why we have the API. That's why we have so many of these options, because we like to be able to integrate. Nice.
Well, I think we've about run to the end. I will say, one thing it didn't come up yet, but it usually pops in later, is delay. Let's talk about what the expectation is between hearing it and seeing it.
So with Zoom, it's a little bit higher because Zoom has a little bit of a lag. We set our system up just to be a couple of seconds. Right here, I see the max delay. The maximum is set at 4 seconds. So we're going to get our results back from our engine at 4 seconds. You can, if you would like, extend that out a little bit more. If you extend it out a little bit more, it'll allow the engine a little bit more time to take a look. So if you're saying the word your or their, it will wait for more words to kind of complete the sentence to try and judge the tense or the type of the word. So that way it can respond back with whether it's Y-O-U''RE or Y-O-U-R, same thing with there. So, the delay 4 seconds is very, very appropriate for broadcast facilities. And it's close enough that if you are listening and also reading at the same time, it's not too distracting of being too far separated out. Your mind is still processing what you heard, and you can still read that kind of online.
Can I get this to look at my emails, because I still can't figure out when to use your or you are or their.
This is funny, but we actually, when somebody calls and leaves a voicemail here, we get it emailed in a WAV file. And a couple of times I've not wanted to. I was in a meeting and maybe I didn't want to. Whatever, I would just drop that WAV file into my offline watch folder and then look at the caption file of what somebody just left me as a voicemail. So,
hey, if you're not using your own technology, what good is it?
Yeah.
That's
okay,
awesome.
So I think we're close.
I do want to say let's tackle that the delay question one more time, because I think we addressed it from a standpoint of how it worked in, say, Zoom, but in a normal environment where we're just going to a screen or to the web, we're obviously going to see a different look or different feel.
That's about the 4 seconds that Matt mentioned. I mean, I like to say like 3 to 4 seconds, because it's using some statistical analysis along with the AI to understand, like you said, the tense of the word and where words belong in relationship to other words. So a human is doing that as well. These humans that do captioning remotely are processing, thinking, listening, and we've seen sometimes captions. I mean, humans will do occasionally mistakes, unfortunately, typos. We can't send out an error. We can't do a typo. There is not, if it's not in a dictionary, it won't get out. Plus, by the way, we have over 1,000 bad words, profanity or offensive words that it also will filter out. So we actually have a comedy club customer that has required us to remove those filters so that the comedians can say whatever they want, which is, it's an interesting list. But yeah, so about 4 seconds really is the sweet spot. Matt, Beautiful. I mean, do you have a, or Matt, if you have anything to add to that.
No, absolutely. And so, it depends, I guess, a little bit upon your needs. The nice thing about that content delay at the bottom here, which what Bill was talking about, is we delay the video frames. So if you did want to delay the video frames coming in and being able to keep that in almost an appropriate lip sync, you can kind of do that. So where I'm setting up the max delay is 4 seconds, I can set up that video delay for about 4 seconds. And if we had a system to be able to set up and show that on a webinar, you'd be able then to kind of see the mouth movement almost exactly in time with the video.
Yeah, that's
But
a cool
it's
feature
pretty
that
tight. It's pretty-
we rolled
pretty
that out
quick.
in with our software just a few months ago. That it's nifty, really. That you can make the delay even longer if you had some reason to do a lot of live radio stations. In fact, they delay what, I think 7 seconds. You could have a reason for a video broadcast to delay it a little bit longer too, and you can use our system to do that with it built in.
Got it. Okay, yeah. So we're getting a lot of questions flying at the last second.
Oh,
Some of them
great.
pricing. No, Dominic, we're not going to practice the cuss words on here.
Well, I could show you the list. No.
Yeah. K through 12, people looking at ways that they can use it for board meetings. Absolutely. So lots of options there. Hey Grace, can you find out if that's my car out there honking?
Uh-oh.
Okay, good. There's a car in the parking lot, and I thought maybe I triggered the button when I was here. So a couple people asking about pricing and some things like that. So folks, we've got the notes, and oh, you said George. Oh, sorry, it wasn't you, Dominic. It was he wanted to put some George Carlin through here.
Yeah, those are in there. They're in there.
Those are in there. Those are in there.
So Matt actually did some testing once, and he was swearing these words into the microphone, and somebody else walked by, and
there's about 1,400 words that we were able to find. Some of these I had no idea, and I had to look them up. But yeah, we actually we did our own testing. So as a true story, I sat in our shop for 2 days and swore into a microphone with different tenses and inflections, making them pluralized and things of that kind of nature. And so
did you feel better afterwards? I mean, just to get that out of your system.
You need therapy after some of them.
Yeah, it was kind of cathartic, but it was a little bit more concerning that it was our HR person who was walking back and forth to speak with somebody else. And after the second day, I had to explain myself. And it was like, oh, okay, so it's work related. So yes.
Awesome. All right, team. We are at the bottom of the hour. I'm going to go ahead and call it here. As always, ladies and gents, if you have more questions, which many of you do, and we're going to get them answered at a later date, the digits are up on the screen. However, backwards, I'll fix that in post.
It looks good here, by the way.
Okay, so it must just be on my side. I'm seeing on my screen backwards. But reach out to your local JB&A sales rep to get an idea of if you need pricing, if you need to register a deal, if you want to set up a demo. Demos like this can be had online where we can prove it out live. Clients can send content to us. We can send it back to you. There's lots of ways that we can show this will work with your content. And if needs be, we can also, in great cases, get a box out to you to test it live in your location. We keep one here in the studio. It is active, and Rick and I actually set it up as a lower third so we can caption our meetings right here on air and bring it on screen in our TriCaster. So lots of ways we can show you what this can do, but most importantly, let's get the conversation going. So, all right, with that being said, I'm going to call it. Grace, come on in. I know you're dying to be. I have a guest in office today. She wants to be on air. All right, everybody, this is my daughter, Grace. She is my intern of the day. And we did not social distance or wear a mask. Don't be mad. It's all good. All right. Hey, this has been JB&A Today Live. It was great having you on. Catch the replay. It'll be out and about in a matter of hours. And we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.